Mr. Mayor.
How are you?
I'm good. Could you or somebody up here break down the 12 billion projected cost you just talked about, you know, in terms of how much of that is going towards actual housing, how much is going towards social services, legal services, health services? Can somebody just give us a sense of how that is estimated to break down over the next few years?
Yeah, first of all, I thank God when Jock came on board, he was already bald-headed because he would have lost all his hair by now. So, Jock, why don't you come give some of these numbers?
There's going to be a technical briefing after 1:30. I could get into the detail with you, but most of the cost basically is the cost of shelter because the cost is driven by the census. So as we have more people coming to the system, that's what we have to shelter a lot more people. So that's what drive the cost. But I will provide you more information at the technical briefing.
Mayor, have you guys submitted a list to the state when it comes to needs? And are you guys on the same page with the state? Because I'm hearing from sources within the governor's administration saying that they don't believe that they have to uphold this court order from the judge last week.
All this is going to be played out in court. The judge is going to determine what must be done and what shouldn't be done. We want to focus on how do we operate as a partner to navigate us through these extremely difficult times. And, Judge Radix, the Corp Counsel, she's going to discuss what we need to do when we get back into the courtroom. But again, we want to thank what the governor has done with our congressional delegation, what they have done as well. But, we laid out our case. The potentiality that New York City residents are going to have a $12 billion potential price tag over the 3 fiscal years is something we have to deeply think about. We talk about $12 billion in addition to what we already need to run this city. And it's just unfair for New Yorkers to carry that burden.
Letter to the state with those needs?
Yes. Judge, where's your, what's that new movie that's...
I guess I grew hair, right, Chuck? Good morning. The Callahan document requires that the court have conferences in chambers. That's why there has not been a lot of publicity with reference to what the court is requesting. The document that you just referred to with reference to request for a letter happens to be a court order. We are going to comply with the court's request and the court's order. We have no idea who is not going to do that. You asked the mayor whether that cannot be done. He doesn't know, but we know that it's an order from the court, and we expect that it will be followed.
Mr. Mayor, I'm wondering if you might be able to address how this situation might define your administration as you prepare for re-election. I know it's early, but I know that this has overshadowed a lot of work that you have done. I mean, how do you extricate yourself politically from this situation?
Well, no, this situation has not overshadowed the success of this administration. You guys are just not covering it, the success of this administration. When you look at what this team has done around, record levels of people who we put in housing, what we've done around public safety to decrease in crime, what we've done investment in children, summer youth employment. This administration, we're going to have a clear record of how well we have dealt with this crisis. And listen, every mayor had a crisis that he had to handle. Bloomberg had 9/11. De Blasio had COVID. You don't sit back as a mayor and say, woe is me. You say, why not me? I want the ball. This is the city that I love, that I protected as a police officer. This is the city I want to lead. I thank God every day that I'm the mayor of the city right now during these difficult times. And we're going to continue to move the ball down the field. I have an amazing team. They're dedicated. They're committed. to what we do. And, it's a blessing that we have Deputy Mayor William Isom, who's coordinating this, a military expert, and Zach Isco, a person who's a dreamer that's in charge of immigrant affairs. When you look at where we are, we're going to manage this as we manage all the other items that we have to deal with. This is a blemish. Oh, don't interrupt me. Please, don't interrupt me. I do not interrupt when you ask questions. Don't interrupt when I'm answering them. And you could ask your question as long as you want, and I'm going to answer as long as I want. That's the rules that we did day one when I became the mayor. The blemish is not on this administration. The blemish is on the national government, that we are allowing this crisis to fall in the lap of our local municipalities. That's the blemish. We're going to do our job. That's my job, to protect the people of this city and everyone in this city, and I'm going to do that job. Now, you wanted to finish up? Oh, let him finish. Go ahead. You had another part of it? Yes.
Well, actually, I have a follow-up question, Mr. Mayor. I'm wondering now, you are the face of this crisis right now.
Mm-hmm.
People see you struggling with this crisis.
Mm-hmm.
How do you address residents of New York City to reassure them that you've got things under control?
You said people see me struggling?
Yeah, with the situation. I mean, we are, as you said, in a crisis, right?
Yes, but I'm not struggling. I'm managing a crisis, and anyone who has managed a crisis before know that the leadership is important. We went over a year. I think this started in April. We went over a year. When we had 15,000, I stated it was time to call a state of emergency. We went over a year. What we were successful in doing, one, as we stated, we want no child and family to be sleeping on the streets. We were successful in doing that. We were able to shield, for the most part, the New York City public from the depth of this crisis. For a year, we managed what we were going through night after night after night. And people were able to carry out their regular days because of how we managed that. And so I'm the face of a successful city that successfully is doing what no other city has been able to do at the magnitude that we have been able to do. That's the face you're seeing. You're seeing the face of a good manager with a good team managing a crisis that we are facing.
Thank you. What can you tell us today, Mr. Mayor, about how many students the city school system is preparing for and how it's preparing?
During Jock's technical briefing, he'll go through that, but we don't know the exact number because this is a moving target. The latest round of asylum seekers and migrants we're receiving, there's a large number of children and families. And so it's a moving number, and it's difficult to say exactly how much. Our chief of staff had a meeting. We called the state to prepare them, state education, to prepare them of the potentiality of what we're facing. But we have been successful through the chancellor and through the entire DOE team. We have been successful in absorbing those young people to make sure no child is going without education in our school systems. We don't have the exact number because it's a continuing, growing, and moving number.
Mr. Mayor, at what point is the sympathetic, empathetic, right thing to do for the entire city? At what point is it that you either turn away the migrants or bus them to other places because the city has reached its breaking point, as you say, we've crossed that breaking point? And my second question is, at what point, what has the Biden administration told you specifically as to why they have sent as little money as they have sent so far?
Well, we are going to never reach the point where we're going to do what those governors did, just using migrants as political pawns. We're never going to do that, and we are at the breaking point. What you saw outside the Roosevelt Hotel a few days ago was because, as we stated, there was no more room. There was just no more room, and we had to, until we were able to find new spaces, we had to temporarily have people that was outdoors. And, I went there. I spoke with those men. No families were out there. I spoke with those men and, told them what we were dealing with to the best of our ability until we were able to find Deputy Mayor Williams Isom and Commissioner Isco was able to find new locations, and churches stood up and assisted us. But we would never reach the point where we're going to do what others have done. But we are out of room. This is not sustainable. It's not sustainable for the state at these numbers that are coming in. It's only a matter of time before we're going to even fill up the state. So there needs to be a change in course.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
do you think it's a failure of state government that the governor has not asked President Biden to declare a federal emergency?
The governor has been a real partner, and we have communicated often. She has assisted us putting $1 billion in the budget. She found a site for us at Creekmore, where we're going to be putting up a new location. She's assisting us with other spaces. We spoke yesterday after the announcement in the Bronx. We just need more help on a state level. We need additional help. And I'm going to continue to advocate on what we need here. And so we believe one of the things we should do is to call for a state of emergency. And I know that she has been in communication with the White House, but I think, exactly at what pace, is that something that I think you should present to the governor?
Has she asked Biden directly? Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Mayor, Staten Island Republicans have reacted pretty swiftly to a possible migrant center for assisted living facility. What would you say to them about their negative reaction and the importance of different parts of the city sharing equal burden for this issue?
Yeah, I don't know if it's so much of a negative reaction or positive reaction. I think that people are just, feeling the weight of this. And so when people say, well, Eric, you guys said you were out of room before, but you keep finding space, it's just not desirable space. I mean, can you imagine waking up every day, sleeping on a cot, not having your basic needs, and the inability to work and provide for your family? And I'm just going to keep saying this over and over again until it really resonates with all of us. Just think about your ancestors. Can you imagine coming here if you were African, Irish, Jewish, Polish, German, Chinese, coming here and your family members would say, your mom, your dad was told, you cannot provide for the basic needs of your family. That is so inhumane. That is so anti-American. And so I understand the feeling that people are having on the ground, but this is what outer space means. We have to find less than desirable locations for people to stay in this unsustainable fashion. I don't know how Zach and how they do it every night, that they have to continue to find, going to McCarran Park, going to Sunset Park, going to Randall's Island, going to Creekmore. Every night we have to be creative to find places to allow people to stay so they don't live like other municipalities.
Hi, Mr. Mayor, how are you?
Good, how you doing?
I hear you saying all the time that you're in conversations with the federal government, and you've asked repeatedly for help publicly and extensively on meetings, phone conversations. Just now, you were asked again, what is the federal government saying? What reasons are they giving to you in those conversations about why, not just the funding, right, but why are they not willing to do some faster track work authorizations or temporary protected status? Are they indicating to you, as Congressman Bowman suggested yesterday, that it's too risky politically before the 2024 election? Can you just give us a little more idea of what it is that they're telling you in those conversations?
Well, let's be clear on my role as the mayor. My role as the mayor is to use within my scope of authority to make sure that I manage a crisis in our city, and then to go to Albany, to go to Washington, to advocate on behalf of the city. That's what I have done. And I've gone beyond that by traveling to El Paso and communicating with the administrators there to look firsthand what was happening at the borders and speaking with some of my borders leaders, organizing with my mayors, the mayor of Houston, the mayor of Chicago, the mayor of Los Angeles, to have a unified voice around this issue. And in addition to that, my role is to go to D.C. and sit down. We sat down in D.C. with the White House just 2 weeks ago, or a little more than 2 weeks ago. My chief of staff and I sat down with the Secretary of Homeland Security and other White House personnel and articulate what we needed. Now, it appears as though our voices are finally being heard. And it's unfortunate that sometimes it takes more than one conversation before people understand the definition of what outer room is and that we need assistance. We know that now Department of Homeland Security is going to bring a team here to walk through. I thought it was brilliant on the part of the Chief of Staff and her team to start doing these walkthroughs. People needed to see this. We had corporate leaders come in and walk through. We had congressional delegations come in and walk through. You know, sometimes when things are not in front of you and you don't see it, you don't realize the impact. And so we believe the series of things that this team has done is now allowing people to see firsthand what we have been doing and the urgency of the matter. This is not a philosophical, theoretical classroom project. This is real. And we have to bring people on the ground and say, this is what we're doing every night. And I'm hoping that is moving the tide in the right direction. But, we're frustrated that it's taking this long.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'm wondering, is the city planning cuts to services to reduce existing costs for asylum seekers in its care? And sort of give us specifics as to what those are. And then can you just give us an update on the numbers that we usually get every week on total people in care and asylum seekers in care and how many lives must be?
$12 billion. $12 billion. That has to come from somewhere. $12 billion. That has to come from somewhere. Every service in this city, when we were at $4 billion, I stated that every service in this city will be impacted. So imagine when we had $12 billion. Every service in this city is going to be impacted. Even if we stay at $4 billion, we did how many rounds of PACs? We did 3 rounds of program to eliminate the gaps. 3. Going to our agencies and saying you have to find efficiencies without cutting services. 3 rounds we did that. So if we did 3 rounds at the 1 point something billion dollars, can you imagine what we have to do at $12 billion? So every service in the city is going to be impacted. There was a second part of the numbers.
We have over 57,300 asylum seekers currently in our care. Over 98,500 asylum seekers have come through our intakes since the spring of 2022. We've opened 198 sites, including 13 large-scale humanitarian relief centers. And last week, from 7:30 to 8/6, more than 2,900 new asylum seekers entered our care.
That was, hold on, I'm sorry, that was the number you gave at 2,900, that was for the week.
7:30 to 8/6
For the week.
for the week.
29, no, let that settle in. 2,900. So if we continue to do an average of 2,500 a week, 5,000 every 2 weeks, 10,000 a month. You don't have to be a mathematician to understand what this is doing to our city. How you doing, Marsha? Go ahead.
I wonder, with the advent of more families with children coming to the city and expected to arrive in the city in the next weeks and months, how that changes the problem for you. Because so far, a lot of the shelters that you are about to open are large facilities like on Randall's Island or Creedmoor that are basically cots where people live in a dormitory setting. But when you have to place families with children, you have to enter schools to Do they have to be near schools? And how does that change? Like, do you have to have hotels? Do you have to have different kinds of services? And could you talk about how that changes the magnitude of your problem?
And that's a good catch on your part. Deputy Mayor Williams Ison shared with us in our briefing that the percentage of people who are arriving, of our largest percentage, are those families with children. The last time we were updated, that may change. What I saw last week, which is a very interesting shift that a lot of people may have missed, there were single men, but we were dealing with a large Venezuelan population. Now we are seeing people coming from all over the globe, not only through South America. They're flying into Nicaragua, going up through Mexico, and coming across the border. And that creates a new dynamic. But when you talk about families with children, which we see is the substantial increase that we're getting, or the largest percentage, talking about everything changes. You're talking about we can't use the congregate settings the way we traditionally do, because you have to always worry about protecting children. You have to make sure they're not lined up on the sidewalk like we saw when you was dealing with the single adult males. You have to, make sure they're in school, that they have all the proper school supplies that come with it. So it's just an entire new dynamic that we have to do when we continue to get a large proportion of our migrant asylum seekers are families with children.
On you to build more affordable housing, to find more places that are better to put families with children so they can establish roots in a community where they're going to send their kids to schools.
Well, what it does is we have pre-existing New Yorkers. Let's be clear. We have pre-existing New Yorkers who are on a pathway to move into permanent housing, something that we were successful in doing and getting the large numbers we were able to do. And those pre-existing New Yorkers are our first priority to get into some form of permanent housing. What it's doing is forcing us to have more shelters for the migrant asylum seekers that are different from the congregate settings. The congregate settings in themselves are difficult, but now you have to do a different settings, because we always have to be conscious about families with children. We never want to place our children in harm's way. Asylum seekers are longstanding New Yorkers, and we're going to be committed to that. We always made it clear our top line goal was never to have families with children sleeping on our streets. Good, how are you doing?
As you know, the majority of the immigrants who come here don't speak the language or so it's very important for us to tell the message that you want to tell them. We have been asking them on the streets, the majority men who travel alone, why are you still coming to New York? It's obvious that there's no more women. The mayor has said that. Their answer is that we come here because we know at least this mayor is doing something and he will give us a blanket of food. So one question is, why are we still opening places for single men? Aren't we sending the wrong message? If we keep opening those places, we're telling them to continue coming, we're opening the door for them. And two, they're also telling us, I am not working because I'm waiting for my permit, which we know it's not going to happen overnight, if it does happen at all. So why aren't they working like many immigrants who go and find work immediately undocumented? That's not happening with this new wave of immigrants. Not all of them, but a great number of them. Because I think that the message sometimes is not clear to them. So are we sending the wrong message by continuing opening new spaces for them? And what do we tell them about the work permit that unlikely will come?
Yeah, and that's interesting that you stated that, because that's the duality of the emotions that's attached to this crisis. In one breath, I would hear folks say, why are we still giving them a blanket? And then on the next breath, they'll say, why are they sleeping outside in front of the Roosevelt Hotel? That's why you have to go with your conscience and do what's morally right. We're going to continue to give people a blanket because it's a humane thing to do. And this is a humanitarian crisis that was created by men. And New Yorkers know that we show a level of dignity to people who come here. And so we're going to continue to give them a blanket. It's not the ideal situation for them to be in. And we're not going to the borders or across seas and say, come to New York because you're going to get a blanket. This is the reality. As I saw the other day on one of the stations, that a person shared how when they came to the border, the Custom Border Patrol sent them to New York. So there's a role that's happening down at the borders that's really funneling everyone to New York City. And when you talk about the right to work, we've said this over and over again. And not all of them are not working. Let's be clear. Close to 100,000 arrive. I think we had 97,000 number, but we only have around 50-something thousand in our care. So others are in the black market. Others are doing other things. Others are, when you call them, they're delivering your Uber Eats. The reality is that this crisis and the failure to allow people to work to fill the thousands of jobs that we have has created a black market. I'm really curious of what's happening and how some of these migrant asylum seekers are being exploited. I'm concerned about what could be happening to some of the women that are coming into this country right now. We're seeing what's happening across our city. And so when you create this black market of workers, you undermine not only our economics, but you also undermine all that we did to fight to have fair working conditions. But don't believe that none of the migrant asylum seekers are not working, because they are.
No, I did not say that.
Okay,
I
okay.
say that I do see them on delivering food, like you said,
Yes.
but I do see a number that is saying, I'm waiting for a permit, and most of the immigrants that come here just go and get work. And if I might just ask her, the 60-day rule, is that helping you a lot create spaces for families? Because the point is that single men are still coming by the numbers. So you're still opening spaces for them, for single men, with this new environments you're creating, humanitarian relief. So the question is, when they're leaving the 60-day hotels, is that enough to cover the new families that are?
Yeah, the goal is to motivate people to do a series of things. We have to create an environment where people are going to be independent on their own, because this is not sustainable. Second, alternate sites. We have witnessed that some people are starting to reach out to family members across the country, family members who are here. They are realizing that there are other ways to become self-sustaining. And think about where we are right now, because this is what I find so amazing about where we are right now. Right now, the way it currently states, you can come to New York from anywhere on the globe. You could come to New York City, and we are supposed to feed, clothe, house you as long as you want. That is just not sustainable. It's not realistic. And so because of that, you're finding people come from all over the globe. That's not fair to New York City residents. That's not fair to them when they come here and realize that, this is not what is, you're not going to be able to live in this condition. And so we did not create, we inherited this. And that was why we came out today to speak to New Yorkers and tell them what the price tag is, and to speak with our partners on the federal and state level and state that we need to get this under control.
Mr. Mayor, I'm wondering if you could clarify with the Roosevelt Hotel, the reason we are no longer seeing people sleeping out there is because they are being moved to places that are less desirable in the city's estimation. And my second question is, on services, you mentioned that every service is up for a potential cut because of the spending, but I'm wondering, is the city considering cutting servants to migrants themselves specifically because of the new estimate?
Both good questions. So what happens is each night, that's our intake center. That's the hub. When you come in, we determine where we're going to place you. If we get more than we can process at any given time, because we still have to follow fire rules, we still have to follow occupancy rules. There are still rules we must follow. So if we get an influx that is more than we can accommodate inside the space, that we're going to turn to different locations where we may find beds, may leave. Then they're outdoors. That has not happened at that level before. That happened a few days ago when we reached capacity and we couldn't put more inside. We had to find spaces for those who we had inside that already went through the process, the medical checks and all the other things we had to do. When we were able to move them out, we were able to move the individuals outside in. But what we were able to do, because of one of the faith-based institutions, they said, listen, we have a church space overnight that we will allow people to be in instead of having to be outdoors. We were able to move them there overnight and then bring them back and place them on the line. And your answer, cutting services, every service must be cut. Deputy Mayor William Isom and our team is doing an analysis of every dollar we're spending on asylum seekers, and we're looking at how do we bring down that cost as well. So some of the things we were doing, we're not going to be able to do. So I told the team at the beginning of the last week that we need to do a real analysis of what we're spending, and we have to even cut that area. So everyone is going to be cut across the board. It could be something simple as the meal. If we could save, $1 or $2 on the meals, if we could save on, the laundries, because, all those sheets have to be cleaned. If we could save on napkins, if we could save everywhere, we're looking everywhere to see how we can bring down the cost of the asylum seekers. And Tim Pearson has been playing a role with Deputy Mayor Williams Isom and the Chief of Staff. They've done a report, they did an analysis, but it's across the board. We have to cut across the board.
Mr. Mayor, hi.
Yes, how are you?
The new numbers, the $12 billion over 3 fiscal years, it seems to be, I get that it's leveling off at an incredibly high level, $5 billion, $6 billion, but it seems to be leveling. Is that because you're baking in that some of these asylum seekers will finally push their paperwork with the city's help and get that permit 6 months on? Or are you folding that into your numbers at all, hoping that some of this over time will get some work going, even with no changes from the administration?
Okay, Jack could do that, but first, and the Deputy Mayor Williams Isom set up a team of our law firms. We really want to take our hats off to them. They've come together, they volunteered some of their staffers to process some of these applications. Now, these applications, number one, there's a real backlog. Number two, that 6 months is a make-believe number. By the time people are processed and they go through the system, it could take anywhere from a year to 2 years. But can you talk about what you're doing with the...
I think we talked about this a little bit last week, and we announced it, and we have several law firms and schools of social work that are going to be joining us also. And we've done, I think, over 1,700 applications so far. We're not giving legal assistance, legal representation, but we're able to help people with their application, which we know that people really want to do as they want to get on that pathway to work.
It sounds like, Mayor, in your answer a little bit, the 6 months is not a realistic number, maybe 1 to 2 years. So that's not really helping the work situation, is what you're saying, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it baked into the numbers or not?
Yeah, to some extent it is baked in, because what we do is we have a scenario where we target 20% reduction in the census because of policy changes we intend to implement. But in the out years in 2025, what we're saying is we don't know what the dynamic is going to be, because there are so many moving pieces that the assumption we're making is we're going to keep it flat as it is at the end of the fiscal year 2024, because we don't know, we don't have enough information, okay, to make an informed forecast about fiscal year 2025.
So, Mayor, yesterday at the Armory, you said that everyone shouldn't be looking to you to solve the migrant crisis, and you asked for volunteers, New Yorkers, to step up and help. So it seemed to imply that you're burnt out. And what did you, what tasks are you looking for New Yorkers to do?
I just, know what I find amazing? I find amazing because I'm passionate and because I'm not rigid. And I like when people say, oh, he went on a rant. This is how I talk. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I do the boogaloo. You know, and it's just amazing how everyone wants to put me in this box. You know, well, he didn't act this way. He's burnt out. Oh, he's angry. Oh, no, I'm passionate about the city that I love. And so other people probably stand up here and they don't have any passion, any emotion. They're afraid to. But that's not who I am. I'm a New Yorker. And New Yorkers are opinionated. New Yorkers let you know how they feel. And, you know, that song, New York, that we play with Jay-Z, you could tell about my attitude. I'm a New Yorker. And so what I said to the woman who asked the question, she said, what are you doing about helping people speak Spanish? Commissioner Stewart from the New York City Police Department is teaching Spanish lessons to not only migrants, but whomever wants to learn, teaching English lessons, not only for migrants, but whoever wants to learn. That's not his role. It's not his role. But he came up with the concept because he said he wants to help. So if you know Spanish and English, you're bilingual, there's nothing stopping you from going to the asylum, one of our hercs, and say, I want to teach Spanish. I'm English. All of us can do something. If you are good in math, there's nothing stopping you from doing some financial literacy. If you are a carpenter, there's nothing stopping you from teaching people basic carpentry. So what I'm saying, stop asking, hey, Eric, what are you doing? You know, this is a Michael Jackson moment. Look at the man and the woman mirror. What are you doing? We all should be playing a role to deal with a crisis when there's an all hands on deck moment. That's what I was saying. We can all volunteer. We could all do something. You know, some of those migrants are journalists. Some of you could, you know, teach people the art of journalism. Everyone could do something. No, let her finish. Let her finish.
Do you have enough Spanish-speaking teachers for the migrant children that are coming in?
Yes, we do. In the manner in which the chancellor, and let me say that with an asterisk, we do with the manner in which the chancellor is going to step up to the plate and make sure those children get what they want. Now, does that mean we don't want more Spanish-speaking teachers to enroll and assist? No, it does not mean that. Yes, we do. There's a shortage of the ideal number that we should have, but we're going to step up to the plate like we have. Now, should we, and we're hoping those who are hearing what we say, we're hoping that they will come and be part of our after-school programs, come and volunteer, come open your churches and have Spanish-speaking classes inside. You know, yes, we need that help. And we have a lot of Spanish-speaking residents in the city that we want them to be part of this amazing moment in history, because history is going to look back on all of us and ask, where were we during the crises? And more importantly, what did we do during the crises?
Hi, yes, Mr. Mayor.
How are you?
Good. You've been dealing with this crisis for over a year. What's the plan come 6 months from now? At what point does City Hall and the state stop turning to the federal government for help? What will be the strategy?
You said, I'm sorry, at what point we would stop?
At what point, because obviously the federal government is not willing to do very much, at what point does City Hall stop asking them for help and turn to a different strategy other than we need more work permits, we need aid? At what point do you guys say, you know, this isn't working, let's move to a different strategy?
Yeah, you know, as a former lawmaker, I saw how laws were passed. They were not passed in the first, month or probably the first session. Advocacy came up to Albany. Electors would stand up and debate and fight, and then there were layers. I think about Rockefeller drug laws, what we had to go through to get it passed. I could think of some of the legislation, the stop and frisk legislation that Congressman Jeffries and I, as an assemblyman, passed. It took years and years, or months and months. And so we know that we have to be a constant drumbeat before people finally identify, okay, now we see what they're saying. And that's what we did. Where we are now, think about it for a moment. Go back and do a lexic search of where we were in April, May, June. You weren't hearing this chorus that was coming from all forms of public and private. There's a chorus that people are singing the song that we wrote. And I believe we're starting to see some of the impacts. And we're going to continue to, one, call for the assistance from the national government, the state government, but we're going to do our job. The worst thing this team can do is to sit down and say, well, we're not getting any help, so we're not going to do anything. That's not how we operate. We're going to do our job, and we're going to continue to elevate our voices. I was extremely pleased to see the governor of Massachusetts say what I was saying. People wanted to seem like I was anti-Democratic Party because I was saying that we deserve to treat people better. No. And I think you're going to see others that are going to stand up and say, we got to be better than this as a country. This is a country that means something, that represents something, and people are watching us. And this is an international crisis of migrants shifting across the globe. And we need to treat it as an international crisis. Global leaders need to come together and sit down and say, how are we dealing with crises? I just sent my team a video from, I think it was England, where they have a huge barge and they are putting it in placing it and, to deal with this crisis. They have over 100,000. This international shifting of people because of climate change, because of wars, because of other conditions, we need to address as international leaders and as local leaders, because this is not going away for a long time. This is a new norm. And so while we are compelling Washington to, to help, our state to help, we have to do what we have to do here locally. But what we are doing is what you don't see any other municipality doing. And we're proud of that, and we're going to continue to do what we have to do. Thanks a lot, everyone.